Hello, and welcome to the Cloud English Podcast. My name is Luke. It is August 30th, 2014, and it's great to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about immersion. Immersion. That's a very important part of improving your English over the long term. Anytime you hear about someone getting really good at speaking naturally, building confidence, it's often because they had the right environment, and that environment was there consistently. Well, I'm going to give you a checklist that you can use, part of it for immersion, part of it for practice, to be consistent. I'm going to provide a link that you can use, and you can go through this on a weekly basis to make sure you're sticking with it, you're not giving up. So hold on for that. I think that's going to be really useful. We're also going to be looking at a scene from Loki, the TV show. We're going to be picking out some useful words and phrases from that. So make sure to stick around for that. There are some things that I didn't get to cover in the previous week's episode. I was going to talk about an interesting word difference, explaining something that I didn't explain well before many years ago. So I want to just explain it clearly for the record. And then also we'll look at some differences between American and British English. So that is what we have planned for today. Again, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Here at the top of the show, if you wouldn't mind just hitting the like button, subscribing, feel free to leave a comment, or those watching live, if you have specific questions and you want to ask, I can certainly do my best to get to a couple of interesting questions as well, or, if you have comments or whatever. Let's see. You can also check out the new English verb tenses course that's currently on Udemy. Just search if you want to check it out. I don't know if it's in the links, but if you go to Udemy, you can search English verb tenses, and it should come right up. That is basically all of the verb tenses in 1 hour. It's a very short course. It's, I think, very impactful. The examples are clear. I don't think you can misunderstand them. I spent a lot of time getting good examples, right? And I think if you go through that course and you take that 1 hour course, you will have a much better understanding of English verb tenses. Let's see, what else? Join the Discord. That's free to do if you would like to do that. If you're watching and you would like to listen, you can do that. Links in the description for podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those. You can do that there. Also, if you're listening and you like to watch, YouTube and Facebook is the way to go. We are live on Fridays. So if you want to join live, I'm consistent now, Mr. Consistent. Yes, it's true, the last 2 weeks the internet has cut out suddenly, but I'm working on a fix for that. I'll just explain. Currently, I have an extender, and also that's connected to a router, which is connected to a modem, which is connected to the internet. And so there are too many steps, too many things that can go wrong. I'm working on a fix for that. So for those of you who are more, who understand internet things, I will be getting a hard line directly into my computer from the street, basically, where the internet access point is. And so by next week, we should be rock solid. So if this week suddenly cuts out for no apparent reason, that's the reason. That's why. But it won't happen anymore after this week. And if we make it through this whole episode, that's amazing. That's fantastic. That'll be the first time in 3 weeks. It's been frustrating, but, everything is possible. I see we have Oscar joining, and Juan, hello, and Eunice, hello, Ethiopian viewer, fantastic. Ethiopian food is in my top 5, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Ethiopian cuisine. I've probably never had authentic Ethiopian food, but there are a lot of Ethiopian restaurants in New York City, and I've been to many of them because I'm a big fan of the cuisine. In no other cuisine do you get to eat the plate. The food, if you get the I think it's called injera bread, right? All of the food comes on this very thin, spongy, a little bit sourdough type, but very thin bread. You grab pieces of that and you take some of the curries, vegetables, whatever. Amazing. Amazing. Fantastic. If you haven't had it, you got to try it. Top 5 cuisines for me, probably I'll go Chinese, Japanese. These are actually not in a specific order. I can't sort them. Chinese, Japanese, Thai, Mexican, and Ethiopian. I think that's my top 5. But then I think Greek is right up there, very close. And you'll notice that nowhere in there is American cuisine, whatever that is. Well, that's because American cuisine is not even in my top 20. The only American food that I like, really, is I have a soft spot for American breakfast. Not specifically during breakfast time, but just a big American breakfast with an omelet or eggs, bacon, sausage, potatoes, American-style breakfast that you would get at Denny's or IHOP or something. I definitely have a weakness for that, but I think it's more for nostalgia. But hamburgers, I'm not really into that. A lot of bready stuff, not so much. I don't know. A lot of that American food is not very healthy and has a lot of bread in it. I will say though, I do like pizza. I know pizza is Italian. I know, but I think Americans can also claim pizza as American food, even though it's Italian. It's also American. It is. It is. Okay. Well, let's get into it. We're going to start with our checklist. And then, again, questions are always welcome. Questions are always welcome. If you want to become fluent in English, you have to be consistent. Very consistent. And a big part of that consistency has to do with your environment. We call that immersion. Surrounding yourself with the language. What better way to be consistent than to just have English around you all the time, right? You often hear, after, 5 years living and working in America, my English got a lot better. I got better at understanding people, understanding references and jokes. My listening improved. I was able to communicate with more confidence because I had to use it every day at work and going out to do things. I can say, my wife, for example, when after coming to America, her English improved like you would not believe. Okay, maybe one reason is because she's married to an American dude, I suppose. But I think her work was the biggest piece of that because she had to actually accomplish tasks in English. Okay, but how can I do this? How can I have this at home? I want to give you a simple checklist that you can use. And if you look in the links in the description, you will see that checklist available. If you have Notion, then you can copy it for yourself. So this checklist, we're going to just call the Immersion and Practice Checklist. Some of the things here are more to surround yourself with the language. Some of these things here are more about, let's say, doing stuff. And I think they're so closely connected that it's hard to separate them out. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so that it's easier to read. Now, what I'd like you to do with this, oh, that doesn't look good. Let's see. That's a little better. Okay, that's readable and better, I think. So what I want you to do now is take this checklist. You can't interact with it here as it's published. You cannot. But what you can do is copy it. It's in Notion. If you have Notion, you can click here, duplicate, and that will allow you to add it to your own Notion. Once you have it in your own Notion, a version of it, if you want, you could just copy and paste it. Then you can use it. And what I want you to do is use it as a reference point for what you should be doing if you want to be consistent, if you want to have immersion, right? So check these off once a week. Try to do all of these once a week. And I'm really confident that if you're able to check all of these off once a week, you have immersion and you will improve, right? And again, this is at home, right? Something you can do at home. So let's go through these one by one. We're going to start here with books and articles. So dedicate time each day to reading English books or articles that interest you, helping to build vocabulary and comprehension. So that could be 5 minutes, 5 minutes did you spend every day a little bit of time reading something you're interested in, a page of a book, something. Do something every day. Reading is important. Reading is probably the best way to discover new language in context. Did you do that every day? Check that box. What about TV shows, movies, podcasts, YouTube videos? These are all kind of the same category, right? We want to obviously watch TV shows and movies or watch YouTube videos, find a podcast. The key is that you need to find what you like so that you stay motivated. Hey, maybe that's just watching this me once a week. Great. Then maybe that's it. Add that to your checklist. Maybe you have a TV show that you like. Maybe you like to watch English movies. Maybe you like to watch documentaries. Documentaries are very interesting, right? Listening to podcasts on the way to work. Find these things. Now, if you wanted to break this out for maybe each type, you could do one checklist for each, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, and a TV show. And you want to have 4 separate checklist items. And I'm just going to make sure I check them all off for a week, right? That's okay too. I'm not saying this must be exactly like this. I think this is pretty easy to accomplish, right? It's not hard to accomplish this list. But if you want to push it a little farther, you could say, break this down into 4. 1 movie, 1 podcast, 1 YouTube video, something like that, right? At least. You can do more, of course, but at least that in order to check it off your list. Now we get into some practice stuff. So if you have that, you have the immersion, but you need to do stuff too. I think it's part of immersion. Part of immersion is doing stuff with the language. And so you want to practice speaking. Maybe you have a practice partner. Maybe you have a tutor. Okay, not all of us do. Or use AI tools, right? There's no excuse if you're using ChatGPT, Character AI, Natural Fluency. There are so many things that you can use now, AI tools, to have infinite conversations. So there's no reason not to, right? It's so easy to do. And you can have, if you know the correct prompts to use, a really good and useful conversation, right, with, let's say, ChatGPT, which is the one I usually use. I probably talk back and forth to ChatGPT for at least 40 minutes every single day. Yes, it's part of my life now. I have conversations about books I'm reading, about things I want to learn more about, back and forth conversations to work through ideas. I think about marketing using ChatGPT. What I do is I build little dedicated GPTs for specific things. I have a marketing GPT. I have an ideation GPT. I have a podcast planner GPT. It doesn't do everything for me, but I talk through my ideas and I get somewhere with that. To have that back and forth, it's useful to get it out of your head. Well, it's also very useful for practice, and you have to get in the habit of doing it. I can say I am 100% in the habit of doing it to the point where it's just part of my life. I'm looking forward to when the advanced voice mode comes out. I think that's going to be really cool. Now, what about other types of regular sort of best practices that you can have? These are just little practices that you can do here and there. Did you do these things this week? How about mental descriptions? Throughout the day, people talk to themselves, right? I do it. Talk to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing. Describe your surroundings. Describe what's happening. You know, that old lady with the little dog. I hope she doesn't jump over the railing and fall down the hill. If she did, I would probably jump over as well and try to save her. I hope the dog will be okay. That would be a very strange thing for her to do. Why am I even thinking about this? What is wrong with me? Why do I think such strange thoughts? Anyway, oh look, here comes a John Deere tractor driving down the ramp. I wonder where it's going. It's just talk to yourself out in your head. I don't know. I do it. It's a great way to just reinforce the language that you know. But there is a time and a place, I think, for getting serious. So when you encounter new language, new phrases, idioms, maybe from watching movies, from the workplace, from reading that you're doing, from whatever, have a way to document that because you're getting that in context. That's the beautiful thing for language discovery is if you have immersion, you're surrounding yourself with language, TV shows, movies, books, articles, whatever, you're going to encounter new language. You're not just learning 100 words in a random list. You're learning it from your life. And so there's a built-in context there. So when you learn the meaning of that word or phrase or whatever, what's going to happen is it will stick better, right? And you will have a kind of anchor. Oh yeah, I heard that in a meeting when we were talking about this. That will anchor that word to your life. My son is learning words like crazy now. He's 1. And all of the words that he's learning are things that are around him that he can manipulate, right? So he's sitting here holding an apple, and he can't eat it because it's too big, but apple, apple. And then the next day when I point at it and say, what's that? Or I say, where's the apple? He knows exactly what it is because it's part of his life. So have a way to document that. Your notes app on your phone, a little notebook, whatever you like to do, right? And then find ways to use it. So if you can keep a daily journal, just write down a few things. I believe writing is a very powerful thing. It's different than speaking. Writing and speaking are not the same. You should do both, right? Write a little bit if you can. What are you thinking about today? Just make it a daily habit. And if you can, work in some of that language that you're learning. Well, how about that real-world engagement? I think it is useful to use a language in the real world a bit, right? So maybe you just write a review for a product you bought on Amazon, or maybe you joined a meetup, right? Maybe there's a forum. You're on Reddit, right? You're in a couple Reddit communities. You write comments. Maybe you watch my weekly live podcast on Fridays, and you ask some questions or respond to other people. So all of that stuff is great. That's going from just writing down your own thoughts to participating, even in a very simple way. It's now you're using your language to do stuff, right? And for example, if you're watching and I'm going through new phrases, as we often do, put down examples of those. We're going to be watching a clip, a movie clip. So write down examples of some of the phrases that we learn, right? And then this is the last point. I strongly recommend, yes, this is the hard part, to set aside time to study. I mean study, real study. To sit down. I do this. I study. I study almost every day, actually. Study idioms, study pronunciation, dedicated study of, okay, how do I say these 10 words, and practice a little bit, right? Grammar, look at sentences that you don't understand, figure out the grammar. Again, ChatGPT is really great for that. Write down new sentences that are similar, right? Actually do sort of like school style, homework style studying. And flashcards are great, if you want to memorize stuff, they can be useful. Not always for learning context, but they can be useful. So find ways to study and study. I mean, even if you just do it once a week, you can check that off your list. So what I'm saying here is take this concept and run with it. In the link, click on duplicate. With duplicate, what does this do? Duplicate. That should bring it into your Notion. You can sign up for Notion for free. It's a great little tool. I use it all the time for organization. But you can add it to your Notion, or you can just copy and paste this and build it a little bit custom for yourself so that, it actually works for you, your style. Change the descriptions, whatever you want to do. And just go through and make sure you tick off all the items once a week. You've done everything this week, do it on Sunday. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. And maybe you set up a streak system where if you do it, you do it each week, then you have this week is done. I did it. And then you did it 3 weeks in a row. And if you did it 3 weeks in a row, then you don't want to sort of go against yourself and your past and your achievements. So you have to do it the 4th week too. And you start to build up a kind of momentum, right? You don't want to let your previous self down. And so you make sure you do it this week. And this is how you we could call it bootstrapping. This is how you bootstrap the habit of immersion, the habit of having immersion. You can do this all, basically, at home or on the internet or on your phone, right? So no excuses, right? Just do it. And let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, let me know. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And also get a free course in the links in the description. Okay. Yeah. Just copy and paste that. The link is there already. All right, so check out the link. Juwan says, lately I asked ChatGPT to make a song packed with idioms, proverbs, or even phrasal verbs, and then I put it in a website to change the lyrics to a real song. It's super helpful. I'm assuming, Juwan, you're using Suno. I believe it's called Suno, S-U-N-O. Let's see, S-U-N-O AI. There is a really cool, if you haven't used it, a really cool platform called Suno AI. Let's see, here we go. And basically what you can do is click on Create. Oh, you have to sign up. All right, I won't do it now. I have an account, but I'm maybe just not logged in. Actually, can I log in? I just don't want to do it. I don't want to log in, obviously, and show my login. That would not be ideal. Okay, so let's see if I can log in here quickly. Okay, great. I'm logged in already. So I sometimes will do, I have a side project that I'm working on where I need ambient stuff, kind of ambient background music, right? And so you just use a prompt to create, and you can generate songs with lyrics or without. You can do instrumental songs, Shadows of the Stars, Echoes in the Night. So listen, so I just created this, and my prompt was lo-fi, creepy, moody, sci-fi ambient. That's what I wanted. Let's see what we got here. Pretty good, right? That's nice. So I will basically, and it's free, and you can do, I don't remember how many it is per day, but you get a limit, but you can generate a few songs per day, and it's really cool. I'm using it for one of my latest projects. Howdy from Colombia, says Diego. Hello from Colombia. What's the best tip to be fluent in the languages and above all in English? Well, as we were talking about, fluency in English requires some level of immersion. It requires consistency. That's the biggest thing that people don't think about. You don't want to be too intense. You don't go crazy. Instead, focus on building long-term habits that address your real issues. And don't give up. It's better to do something for 10 minutes a day for 10 years than for 7 hours and then never again, you know? So be consistent. Be honest with yourself. Make sure that you have feedback loops in place. So there's a way for whatever you do to have feedback. Use tools like ChatGPT wherever you can to get feedback, to generate practice exercises, to work on your writing, to get feedback on your writing, to have real-time conversations, as in a voice call, right? All of that and a lot of other things you can do. I'm currently working on a course about using ChatGPT for preparation on exams, for exam prep. So the first one is going to be preparing for TOEFL with ChatGPT. And now it's more complicated to simulate the TOEFL test. And so basically all my time went into the prompts, creating the prompts. It's actually really difficult to create really good prompts. But the better your prompts are, the better the experience will be. What time exactly do you usually go live? I try to go live at between 12 and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Between 12 and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have you heard of the app SpeakPal? Says Juan. I will have to look up SpeakPal. I'm going to write that down. Maybe that's something that I can cover in the future. Let me write down. Let me write that down. And I will check that out. I do reviews, often do reviews as well. So thank you for the suggestion. Please, some specific tools for English teachers. Okay. So Etleva asks about what about English teachers? So it depends on the type of students that you have. But I think there's so many tools out there now, but you can do so much with ChatGPT, especially if you're really good at prompting. If you get really good at prompting and you can get exactly what you need, then you can create useful GPTs. So a GPT is basically a prompt that is kind of locked for a specific thing. So let's say, okay, you're teaching 10 to 16-year-olds. Let's say there is a specific set of words and phrases that you want to make sure they learn right at that age, and you want to make it dynamic and fun and interesting. You don't want to just lecture at them and tell them, right, what they should know and what each one means. So, okay, there are a couple different ways you could do that. Maybe you prompt ChatGPT to create unique adventure stories that require the input of the words and phrases as part of the stories from the students. So let's say, each student has a ChatGPT open in a small group, and they're each running an individual story that you have prompted, right? And that story, if prompted correctly, will basically get them to use the language that you want them to use, the idioms, the words, and the phrases. So you have this custom sort of adventure game for each student where they have to interact, they have to make decisions and solve problems and puzzles and use the language. That's one way. If it's done correctly, it's kind of complicated from a prompting standpoint, but that can be done. On the other side, you could go more traditional, where you could create first a lesson plan, right, for the whole thing. Well, what are the things that you want to learn in the lesson, or what are the things you're trying to communicate in the lesson? So maybe you have a section where you want to explain the language, and then the next section where they practice it. Well, there you could create, so they're not cheating off of each other, simple quizzes, right, using that language, and you could do it in different formats. So some would be multiple choice, some might be fill in the blank, some might be long answer, basically, right? And then you could also have the correct answers generated once they submit those, and you could make that an interactive thing. So there are actually a lot of ways to do that. And I think the value of it is that it's interactive, and you can create more versions. So you could very easily create a unique version for each little group, so that each little group is doing their own thing, right? And I mean, that's just a few examples. There are so many little things you can do, and I think ChatGPT is probably the best way to go, because you can iterate very quickly and adjust the prompts and make slight changes. It's been 6 months since I started using ChatGPT. I rely on it so much that it feels like my second brain. Yeah, I agree with you. And it makes the limitations of it so much more frustrating when you rely on something like that as your second brain, and then it's just so dumb sometimes, right? It's just so stupid and doesn't understand some things sometimes, or gives you generic stuff back sometimes. Sometimes it's so frustrating, and that's just a limitation of, to some degree, there's a limitation in how good you are at prompting, right? So the first limitation, I think it's a series of limitations. The first limitation is your imagination. If you have a problem, ask yourself, could I do this with ChatGPT? Right? Okay, so I need to teach a lesson. Could I do this with ChatGPT? Well, yes, I think I could. I'm going to create a little mini game that uses language. I'm going to create a first draft of a lesson plan. I'm going to create quizzes. I'm going to create homework assignments, and I'm going to maybe use that as part of my feedback process. Okay, so there's a bunch of things you can do. Next step, how good are you at creating the prompts that do all of those things? So that gets into a whole area, a whole field, emerging field called prompt engineering. People who are really good at using Midjourney to generate images. People who are really good now at starting to make AI-generated videos with something like Runway Generation 3, right? That gets into being really good at the right instructions to get good results. But that also has a limitation of the models themselves sometimes just not being smart enough, and it's really about, it's called inference, right? They're just not quite good at everything in the right ways, right? And so sometimes they just seem like they don't understand what's going on, and that there's a technology limitation there. And this next generation of AI tools that is kind of in the works, hopefully will be a massive step forward. There's a new way of training these models where reasoning is being built into the models, sort of this recursive reasoning, where they're learning to explain what they're doing or what they're saying at each stage, and that explanation that they give then generates sort of a set of possibilities, and then the best possibility gets kind of trained back into it, as that's my understanding of it. And so they're actually getting better at actually reasoning, right? And so that's very exciting. When they actually get smarter, then I think it's going to be, wow, it's going to be amazing. Anyway, that's my rant on LLMs. So Etlava, yeah, just use your, first just go through those steps. First, what are the problems you're trying to face? break that down, and then work on the prompts and be creative. It's just how much we are creative at asking questions. Yeah, and it's the right types of questions as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of following the same structure of how magic used to work, right? The concept of magic is that you have the thing that, if you read old books about magic, old magic books from, let's say, the 13th century or something, a book of spells, the spells are the words that are carefully crafted in a very specific way, said in a very specific way, to evoke something. But the magician is the one who must have the sort of driving the fuel of the spell is will, the will of the magician. And so it's this sort of interaction between language carefully crafted and the will of the magician. And so that there's some kind of interesting parallel there between the systems of magic, traditional magic, and how this is all happening with AI tools. It's really interesting. I think it's very interesting. All right. Let's get into our next topic, shall we? Shall we? Yes, we shall. We're going to be watching a movie clip. We're going to be watching a scene from Loki shortly. Actually, no. Why don't we do that now? Why don't we just do that now? Yeah, let's do it now. I have no reason not to do it right now. And then we'll get into something else. So let's hop into Loki. Okay, this is a short scene from the second season of Loki. If you haven't seen it, it's all right. It's pretty good. It's not as good as the first season. I thought the first season was very good. But the second season was sometimes confusing or just off, but you know, there's some interesting ideas there. Anyway, what we're going to do is learn some language from this scene. We're going to pick out specific phrases, try to understand those phrases better, right? How they're being used in context. If you want to try your own examples, then put those in the chat, okay? All right, so let's go.
Why do you never try to stop her? Fight back!
Is that loud enough? I'll turn it up a little bit. Turn it up just a little bit.
Why do you never try to stop her? Fight back! Do something!
Why do you never try to stop her? Fight back. Do something. That guy's called He Who Remains, and he can stop time. Might be useful to know.
How many times have you been at this?
Okay, listen. How many times have you been
come on. You're not telling
this?
me you haven't learned how to pause. Oh, come on. You're not.
Oop.
How many times have you been at this?
How many times have you been at this? How many times have you been at this? To be at something. And it's not just how many times. It could be how long have you been at this. Been at this generally is about a duration of something that's still going on. How many times would be the number of times. How long would be the duration of time. So how many times would be 50, 100, 1,000? How long would be 1 hour, 2 hours, 10 hours, right? So let's why don't we actually pull up ChatGPT here. Been at this is a phrase used to ask how long something has been working or how long someone has been working on or engaged in a particular activity. It's like asking how much time someone has spent doing something. Some example sentences then. You've been at this project for hours. Maybe it's time for a break. How long have you been at this? It looks like you've made a lot of progress. She's been at this for years. So what is this? It's whatever activity that you're doing, okay? So let's keep going here.
How many times have you been at this? Oh, come on. You're not telling me you haven't learned how to pause time yet.
Oh, come on. You're not telling me you haven't learned how to pause time yet. So he who remains, this guy, he can pause time. He's sort of a master of time. He's the person who weaved all of the timelines into the multiverse, the sacred timeline. So he's saying, you're not telling me you haven't. Okay. Well, why is he saying this?
How to pause. Oh, come on. You're not telling me you haven't learned how to pause.
When would I say this? I would say, oh, you're not telling me you haven't learned how to pause time yet. I would say this when I'm shocked that it hasn't happened already. You're not telling me you haven't left home yet. So you're supposed to be here at 3. You said you would arrive at 3. It's 2:45. It takes an hour for you to get from where you are to where I am. I call and say, hey, are you almost here? It's 2:45. Remember, you're supposed to be here in 15 minutes. And then you say, I'm just leaving. But I know it takes an hour. You're not telling me you haven't left yet. You're not telling me you haven't left home yet. So it's kind of an expression of shock or surprise or disbelief. I can't believe that this happened, right? You're not telling me you haven't left yet. You are telling me that. I accept it, but I'm just expressing my disbelief or shock, right? It's just a way of doing that, okay?
Time yet. This isn't the first time we've had this conversation, is it?
This isn't the first time we've had this conversation, is it? So Loki, just for context, is going through basically or a bunch of cycles of time, trying to learn stuff, I think, and he's getting a little farther each time. I forget exactly.
How did you know?
I know about the slipping. Thinking you were sticking it to the system, gonna beat the man, and then
stick it to the system.
You know.
I know about the slipping. Thinking you were sticking it to the system, gonna beat the man, and then
sticking it to the, and here he says system. Now often it's stick it to the man. To stick it to the man, maybe someone, it's not even a man, but the man is this sort of archetypal placeholder kind of thing where it's a position of power or maybe a system that is holding you down or preventing you from doing something, right? And when you stick it to the man, that could be the government, for example, stick it to the man. Do something rebellious. Do something against that, right? Sometimes when someone sticks it to the man, they're showing that they're not afraid of whatever government or person or system or company or board or whatever is in power. They don't care about their power, right? They don't care about how much power they have. I'm going to stick it to the man. I'm going to do this in spite of the man. Again, the man is not usually a man. The man is this sort of placeholder for whatever is up there in power, kind of holding everyone down or preventing people from expressing themselves or being free or whatever. So just to maybe just explore that a little bit more, we can look at some examples. Stick it to the man is a slang phrase meaning to rebel against or resist authority, particularly in a way that challenges or defies those in power. Okay, often the establishment. The protesters wanted to stick it to the man by organizing a large demonstration. He decided to stick it to the man by refusing to follow unfair company policies. The movie is all about a group of underdogs who stick it to the man by exposing corruption in their city. Okay, so again, just a useful little phrase. There they use the system, And then he says the man, but same thing.
Sticking it to the system, gonna beat the man, and then whoop, here he is. Okay, so, this is a lot for you. I get it.
This is a lot for you. Notice the little wry smile there.
So, this is a lot for you. I get it. So
this is a lot for you. I get it. I get it means I understand. I sympathize. I empathize. I understand how you feel. If you're experiencing this for the first time, this is a lot for you is a phrase that basically means something is being overwhelmed or someone is being overwhelmed or could be overwhelmed. This is a lot for me. Give me a second to kind of think through this, right? Maybe I'm being overloaded by information or a new realization about something. I've just received bad news. Listen, I know this is a lot, but I have even worse news, right? Your car doesn't just have a broken headlight. The entire engine has to be replaced, and it's going to cost you $30,000. I know that's a lot. This is a lot for me. Hold on, let me process this. So it's just an expression of saying there's emotional stuff going on, events happening, bad news, too much information to hold on to at one time. It is a lot. And so someone might feel overwhelmed. And so it's usually said when someone might feel overwhelmed, overloaded by information, overwhelmed from an emotional standpoint, right? Could be bad news. It could be good news. This is a lot. I just found out I won $2 million and I'm trying to process that. It could be a lot for me. And, you know, it's just a way of saying, look, little man, I know that this is, you're trying to process everything. But you will see in a second, it may not be what he thinks. This guy, he who remains is the master of time, and he's in a position, he's kind of the man here. He's in a position of all-knowing. Nobody can threaten me. I can control time. I can stop time, right? With a flick of my wrist, no problem. Maybe?
why don't you just go through this a couple thousand more times, get your bearings, and then you just let me.
So Loki is just going through these cycles. Yes, he is mocking. He is mocking him, kind of. He's basically saying, I know you're trying very hard to, I think he's trying to overthrow the whole time system or something that he's in charge of. And he's going through these time loops, and he's going thousands and thousands of times through these time loops to do something. I forget exactly what. To learn something so that he can fix something, I think. And he's saying, just go through it a few thousand more times. You'll figure it out. And then he says, listen carefully.
And then you just go through this a couple thousand more times, get your bearings, and then.
Get your bearings. Get your bearings. Now I'm going to have this one pop up here for a second, and I'm going to edit it because I want this to be on screen. I forgot to add this one. I meant to add it, but I forgot to add it. Get your bearings. To get your bearings comes from, it's a naval term, right? I think, where you would try to figure out your orientation or where you're going using signs like stars and things like that to figure out where you're going. So this is when you feel disoriented, you feel confused or lost, you don't know where you're going or what's going on, and you need a moment to kind of physically look around or emotionally look around. You know, if you're confused about something or you're distressed about something, I need to get my bearings. I need to kind of, just have a moment to find where I am in this moment. And that can be used in a very physical, literal way, right? Let me get my bearings. I lost my phone. Let's see, we're on 3rd Avenue and 24th Street. If we're trying to go to, we need to go 3 streets up and 4 over. Yes, okay. So I get my bearings by actually looking around and seeing where I am. But think about doing that for something where you've maybe, been overwhelmed, right? Emotionally. You can do kind of that same process internally of getting your bearings. Let's learn that a little bit more in depth here in ChatGPT as well. Okay, so to get your bearings is to figure out where you are or understand your situation better, especially after being confused or lost. It's like getting your sense of direction or becoming oriented in a new confusing environment. After getting lost in the city, it took him a few minutes to get his bearings. She took a deep breath to get her bearings before starting the complicated task. Moving to a new country can be overwhelming, but you'll get your bearings after a little while. So that's not about, just knowing where you are in the new country. That's about maybe learning a little bit of the language, understanding the culture, knowing where the supermarket is, maybe knowing where you can get help when you need it, making a few personal connections with people, right? So that's a more general way of using it to get your bearings. I like that one. Okay, let's keep going here.
You just let me know, okay? When you're ready to have a
says go through it a few more thousand times.
Why don't you just go through this a couple thousand more times, get your bearings, and then you just let me know, okay? When you're ready to have a conversation, okay?
Oh, so I think the big realization there is that he can stop time. That's the realization, and I think that's going to be a shock. So he can stop time as well. He has gained the same power as he who remains, except he does it like this, which is cooler, right? I wish I could. All you have to do is that. Very cool. I was a bit shocked.
And what makes you think this is the first time we've...
What makes you think this is the first time we've had this conversation? What makes you think this is when you want to correct someone when they have made a major probably incorrect assumption? If somebody assumes something about you or about what's going on or whatever, they make an assumption. You say, and what makes you think that I did that? What makes you think? Right? I'm kind of expressing maybe a little disbelief sometimes, or perhaps I'm expressing this feeling of, you're being ignorant. You don't know me well enough. You're assuming that I can't do this, but I can, right? Or maybe someone is criticizing you. You've been looking for a job for 8 months. You still haven't got one. You should try getting a referral from that company. And what makes you think I haven't tried getting a referral? Right? That's basically saying you're assuming I haven't tried this obvious thing that everyone should try to do. Of course I've tried that. Maybe it's just a tough market out there, right? What makes you think? So there I'm expressing a little bit of frustration that you would assume that about me, assuming that I don't know this kind of basic thing that most people will do when they're looking for a job, right? What makes you think? Let's go back there. That moment is cool. I got to learn that. Just stop time. It's easy.
And what makes you think this is the first time we've had this conversation?
What makes you think this is the first time that we've had this conversation? Suggesting, actually, we've done this before.
Why do you...
Okay, pretty cool. Pretty interesting. So, those simple phrases, very, very common, very useful, and the important thing is that we have learned them in context. We've learned them in context. Try to use them, put them in your own examples. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and get a free course in the links in the description. Alrighty. Okay. That's an interesting clip. It makes me want to watch season 2 again. I remember not loving it that much, but maybe I should watch it. Maybe I should give it another watch. There's some cool concepts in it for sure. At Leva, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Megan, hello from Nicaragua. Hello, Megan. He was mocking him, Juan? Yes, exactly. Mockery, precisely. If you want to try any examples, let me know. Feel free to add these or add your examples to the comments. What makes you think that English is difficult? Suggesting that English is not difficult. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, back to that prompting thing. You might wonder, okay, how was it that... So I can quickly bring up examples, right? How was it I could just type in the phrase that I wanted, right? I'm using, right, this. This is all based on a prompt. This is a prompt. So there's a prompt that I've used, basically say, every time I put in an idiom or a phrase, I want you to, number one, give an explanation in simple language. And then number two, I want you to give me 3 realistic examples. So then, and you can make that a GPT. All you have to do then after that is just type in the phrase every time. So let's say we want to type in, get the ball rolling. We just type that in and nothing else. If you just type that in without a good prompt, then you don't know what you're going to get back, right? But if you have that clear instruction, basically you're setting this, it's like a little crystal, and it's in place now. And then after that, all you have to do is type in the thing. So we get definition, to start something moving, an activity or process that will continue. It's like giving an initial push to get things moving. And often the language that you get is more too complicated, big words. So you have to get the language right, like simple language, right? And then some examples. Let's get the ball rolling on this project by assigning tasks to everyone. She suggested a few ideas to get the ball rolling during the brainstorming session. We need to get the ball rolling on the event planning if we want everyone to be ready on time. So it's a pretty cool little way to use it, I think, personally speaking. Okay, now we're going to head over to the Blackboard. I have a question I want to answer that I started answering last time, and then what happened was I started answering the question, and then the entire stream cut out. The internet just went down for a minute. Gone. Terrible. Can't have that. So I'm working on getting that fixed. It's not fixed now. So if I suddenly just disappear, boom, that's what happened. And then the show's over. That's it. But however, I promise you, this is the last week where that is a risk. Because next week, I'm getting a whole new thing set up. And it's going to be just a direct connection. And it's going to be great. And then once that's there, it'll be rock solid and it'll be stable. But now we're at a great risk, right? We're at a risk here. It could happen at any moment. And that's kind of stressful for me, right? It could just disappear. It's a little stressful. Diego says, easier learning English than Spanish. Perhaps. I always struggled with the conjugations in Spanish. I took Spanish for a year in high school, and the conjugations of the verbs were tough for me. Have you heard this expression, the ball's in your court? Yes, I have. The ball's in your court means it is now up to you. It is your decision, right? It is now maybe up to you to decide or something like that. The ball is in your court. Let's actually, can we do that one? Oh, I don't have the thing and the thing and the thing and the thing and the thing. Okay, let's yeah, sure. The ball is now in my court. So I got this question once. I got this question in a live stream, and I wasn't happy with the answer I gave. And so it's been nagging me. It's been bothering me. So I want to give a better answer. The question is, why do Americans say gas? When we put the stuff in our car, we say gas. Gas? I thought gas was, hold on a second. Where's my pen here? Hold on, I got to restart my pen. There's always something. Come on, pen. It's either the internet or my pen. That should do it. Yes? No? What? It just randomly doesn't want to work? I tested it right before. I'm writing with a digital pen here. I tested it right before the stream. All good. Works perfectly. No problem. Now, doesn't work at all. Amazing. I love that. It's time to retire this whole pen business, I think. Or use an iPad or something that's a little bit more reliable. All right, let me see if I'll troubleshoot for a minute. And if I can, I don't think I can answer this particular question without my pen. And so I'll just have to skip the topic and go to the next one, unfortunately. Let me try one more time to restart the old board here. It's blinking. It's starting. Is it connecting? Is it connecting? Yes, it's connecting. But it's not working for no reason. Okay, great. Once again, the universe has not allowed me to talk about why Americans say gas. I need to make some notes. So, I guess we'll skip that one. Till next time. That'll be the one topic that I always try to talk about that I never actually talk about. I could just say it, but I feel like I need the visual support of the board. I could just say it. You're right, but I'm going to skip it because I don't want to let technology defeat me, right? I refuse. And so I'm going to say it when I can say it with the visual support from my blackboard. Next time I'll bring the iPad and do it on that, and that'll be more reliable. So frustrating anyway. All right, let's skip to the next topic then. Let's skip to the next topic. So, if you've ever wondered, if you've ever listened to maybe British TV shows, you may have noticed that Americans and Brits don't use the same words all the time. Have you ever noticed that? American shows, British shows, there's some different words. Now, this is aside from other things like spelling and pronunciation. Just different words for the same thing. For whatever reason, over time, places that are far away tend to slowly move in different directions, right? The languages that come from Latin, for example, like Italian, well, yeah, and French, they developed farther away from Rome, the center of the empire, right? And over time, basically just became full languages, and it took time for them to be considered sort of languages on their own rather than specific dialects of Latin, right? And you have this whole family of languages that basically come from mostly Latin, but with other influences, not just from Latin, but with other influences from other places and from earlier languages. It's complicated. Languages are complicated. Well, you could say the same thing happens now, today. It happens all the time. American English, British English are different. And now it's kind of going the opposite direction, where American English is having a stronger influence on British English. If you listen to, for example, British people speak, you will often hear them say like, right? Well, why are they saying like? Well, the use of like, that's classic California Valley Girl. It went from west to east, and it's spread around the world. So it's really complicated. Languages evolve over time. They influence each other. One language isn't exactly one thing because there are a bunch of different dialects of that language. One regional language may have, stronger, for example, Cajun is this interesting mix between French and English, right? So there are these things that are called pidgin languages, and then the Southern English. If you listen to the sound of Southern English, actually is closer to British English than East Coast English in a lot of ways, because there was a stronger British influence on people in the South. Because, well, one reason is that in the South they were supported. The Confederacy was supported by Britain. Anyway, it's complicated and it's very interesting. And I want to go over some words that Americans use and then the British version of that, just to explore this. We're going to go through a few of these. The first one is going to be the word truck. So Americans say truck for pickup truck, but they also say truck for a big 18-wheel truck that carries a bunch of cargo or furniture or whatever, right? Fire truck. It's all a truck. Trucks are everywhere. So the cyber truck is a truck. Right? That's a truck. But also a massive thing with 18 wheels and a trailer, that's also a truck. Okay, he loaded his tools into the back of the truck. And so you often see truck commercials. They're called truck commercials on TV. And you hear people say, my pickup truck. So that kind of truck is often called a pickup truck with a bed in the back. It's about as big as a regular car, maybe a bit bigger, right? But then there's a lorry in British English. The lorry carries maybe more stuff. My sense of a lorry is that it's the bigger style of truck, right? And I believe then a pickup truck is the same a truck as truck in England. I think. Let me confirm this. I just don't want to double check. Okay. Let's see. In British English, they use truck for pickup truck. Right? Just want to confirm that. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So a lorry is a larger truck, right, with a trailer in the back. That's called a lorry. Now, what about the word elevator? Elevator. Americans say elevator, the thing that goes up and down in the building. British people are going to say, we took the elevator to the top floor to get a better view of the city. Elevator was out of service, but British people will say lift. She pressed the button to call the lift and waited patiently. Now, if you say lift in America, will people understand? Yeah. If you say elevator in the UK, will people understand? Yeah, absolutely. So people will still understand. Now, how about the back of the car where you put the stuff? If you have a car and the thing that goes up in the back, what do you call that? Well, Americans are going to call that the trunk of the car. And a trunk is also a name for a box that you would use to store things, right? A trunk. And for example, in Harry Potter, the thing that he puts all of his stuff in is his school trunk. But for cars in the UK, they don't use trunk. They use another word. So examples of trunk: she opened a trunk to store the groceries before heading home. The spare tire is in the trunk. But Brits say boot. Yes, the same word that Americans would say and Brits say to talk about the thing you put on your foot. I wear boots to work because I have a construction job. Same word, right? He placed his suitcase in the boot of the car, So it's called a boot. And I believe in Canada they also say boot. Do Canadians say boot or trunk for the back of the car? I think they say boot, but it could be wrong. Okay, Canadians typically say trunk for the back of the car, similar to American English, because Canada obviously has a closer connection to the UK. And so I actually wasn't totally sure about that. And what about subway? As in, the subway is the train that goes under the ground. Yes, it's also a sandwich restaurant, but it's a train that goes under the ground. So, the subway. What do they call it in England? They call it two things, actually. In American English, they might say the subway station was crowded with commuters. Tube or underground. So I think more colloquially, the one in London is called the Tube. They call it the Tube. But in general, that concept would be the underground. Now, I think if a person from the UK would visit New York, for example, they would say subway because that's what people say, right? So you kind of use the local language when you go there. We caught the Tube to Oxford Circus for some shopping. The underground was delayed due to signal issues, although I think that's probably more likely to happen in America, but okay, I get the idea. Good examples. What about apartment? Americans often live in either a home, standalone home, or an apartment, which is in an apartment building. So an apartment is basically a large couple of rooms in what's called a unit in a larger thing that's called a building or perhaps a complex, right? And sometimes they're flat, but usually it's in a building. She just moved into a new apartment with a great view of the park. The apartment building has a gym and a rooftop terrace. Flat. They rented out a small flat in the city center close to their work. The flat comes with 2 bedrooms and a spacious living room. Now, do British people use apartment for any type of flat? Just curious here. I wonder. The term apartment is sometimes used, but it's generally reserved for more upscale, modern flats, especially in luxury buildings. So I had heard that if it's a really nice flat, a flat is anything, any place that you rent to live, and an apartment is a nicer one, more upscale. I have heard that. The word flat is still more common. Okay, what about, and this is one I'm dealing with a lot, with a young son who is 1 year old. Hello, Pi. What about diaper? Americans say diaper. She changed the baby's diaper before putting him down for a nap. We need to buy a new pack of diapers from the store. Diapers. In the UK, they say a nappy. A nappy, which I kind of like. That's more cute, I think. The baby needs a fresh nappy before we head out. They stocked up on nappies in preparation for the new arrival. Change his diaper. Which word is aesthetically better, diaper or nappy? I actually like the word nappy better than the word diaper. I do. I actually do. Now, this is a classic debate word. This word has caused real arguments for me and some of my British friends. Cookie. Americans use cookie for anything that you eat that's kind of disc-shaped, that's sweet. It's a cookie. And we have the word biscuit, but a biscuit is a completely different thing. A biscuit is savory, and you put gravy on it, or butter. It's delicious, but it's definitely not sweet. And it's very fluffy. It's about that thick. Classic Southern dish, biscuits and gravy. Biscuits and gravy. But British people use biscuit for cookie. But also, I think cookie as well, if it's a big cookie like this, with raisins in it or something, I think we'll confirm that. She baked a batch of chocolate chip cookies. He grabbed a cookie from the jar for a quick snack. Biscuit. She offered him a biscuit with his cup of tea. They enjoyed some biscuits. And when I think of a British cookie, I don't think of a big giant thing like this that's been baked and fluffy and has chocolate chips. I think of a little thing like this, a sort of digestive cookie, biscuit, whatever, right? What's that brand? There's a brand that does a cinnamon one. I can't remember what it is. If anyone can figure that one out, there's a classic brand of cinnamon-flavored biscuits, cookie biscuits, that you would dunk in your coffee, and they're very crunchy and crispy. That's the feeling I get for biscuit, right? Is this kind of, for the UK style biscuit, is this crispy, crunchy thing that you dunk into your coffee. They enjoyed some biscuits and cheese after dinner. Okay. First question, do Brits use cookie? And I think the answer is yes, for that larger style of cookie, right? The cookie with raisins in it. Yes, in British English, the term cookie is used, but it refers specifically to a particular type of biscuit, usually a soft, chewy, often larger biscuit with chocolate chips. Yeah, okay. So it's used, that's my understanding as well, but not used for everything. Okay. Okay. Now let's do this. Create an image of a British style biscuit. Okay, so let's create an image of a British style biscuit, and then we're going to create an image of an American style biscuit. Okay, that is what I had living in my imagination, basically. Yes, that's what I picture. Something kind of crispy, more cracker-like. More cracker-like in some ways. Now create an American-style biscuit. And what we should see is this big fluffy thing, maybe with gravy on it, which is not sweet at all, and Americans would never in a million years call that a cookie, what we call a biscuit. It's savory. It's not sweet at all. And it's a little slow. Image generation is a little slow. But you'd have it with something like turkey. Yes. Thank you, ChatGPT. That's a good one. That's pretty thick. Look how big that is. So this is more like bread. It's bread, basically. It's a big old piece of bread, and it's good. It's good if you're in the mood for it. If you're not in the mood, then let's do a few more. This is fun. Candy on Halloween. My birthday's on Halloween. The kids were thrilled to fill their bags with candy on Halloween. She offered me a piece of candy from her jar. Very nice. And in Brits say sweets. We would say sweet as a description of the candy. The candy is sweet, but we wouldn't use sweet as a noun, right? Sweets. Okay, the children were excited to pick out their favorite sweets at the shop. And you would use that exactly the same way with candy replacing sweets in American English. The children were excited to pick out their favorite candy at the shop. He always keeps a tin of sweets, candy, in his pocket to share with friends. That's creepy. That's creepy behavior. That's weird. Let's do a couple more. Flashlight, a thing that you turn on, right, that has batteries in it. You can have a flashlight, a little flashlight, a pen light, beep, beep, beep. You can have a big, giant flashlight with 1,000 lumens. You grabbed a flashlight to check the fuse box when the power went out. We used a flashlight to find our way back to the campsite after dark. We use the word torch in American English, but a torch is specifically a piece of wood on fire at the top. That's what a torch is. So you have a stick or a piece of wood, and you tie a piece of cloth to the end of it, and then maybe you have some lighter fluid, and you put that on the cloth, and then you light that on fire, and you're sort of, 800 BC in a cave style, looking around with fire in your hand, like from a movie in a jungle or something like that. And they use that same word in the UK to describe what I would call a flashlight, to have the thing with the switch. Okay, so then here's my question. I've always wondered this but never asked. Okay, someone said scone. No, scone is, usually sweet. I see what you're saying, but usually scone has a different shape. Usually a scone is kind of triangle shaped. And a biscuit is usually circular. So shape is a part of it, but also flavor. Although I will say the texture between a scone and a biscuit are similar. So texture is similar, shape is different, flavor is a bit different. Okay, so how do... I don't know the answer to this question I'm about to ask. I'm authentically asking this. I don't know. How do British English speakers differentiate between a flaming torch and a flashlight? Maybe it's all just context, because that's also a torch, right? Context usually clarifies whether torch refers to a flashlight or a flaming torch. However, to avoid confusion, speakers might use specific terms. Okay. Okay, he packed an electric torch. Electric torch? That's too many words. Okay, so context. Fair enough. I guess context works. But I would prefer more precise words, you know, personally. I'm noticing that in British English they use the American word apartment, cookie, but they're using it in a specific way, right? So we're all using the same words, but we're using them a little bit differently. Americans tend to maybe have well, I don't know. I don't want to say more specific, because then in British English they're using cookie and biscuit to be very specific about the type of cookie. So, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, let's do one about clothes. I think this one was already mentioned, but we'll just do it quickly. We'll do two more. Two more. Sweater. This is not a sweater. This is a corduroy shirt. A sweater is something you would wear maybe in the autumn. She wore a cozy sweater to stay warm in the chilly evening. He bought a new sweater for the winter season. In the UK, it's jumper. And we don't use that for anything. Well, no, we do. Sorry. A jumper is a kind of slang term for someone who intends to end their lives by jumping off something like a building or a bridge. And that's not an official term, but you might hear, I don't know, police say, we have a jumper. That doesn't mean they did jump, but that might mean that they intend to jump, and then they might have to talk them down, right? So we do use that word in American English, but not for a sweater. Not for a sweater. She put on a thick jumper before heading out into the cold. He received a wool jumper as a Christmas present. Very good. Let's do two more. Let's do two more. Because this one's good. Sneakers. Now we would say sneakers, or perhaps basketball shoes, running shoes. We also just say shoes, although that's too vague. He laced up his sneakers before going out for a run. I feel like people say sneakers less and less in American English. I think a lot of people will just say shoes and let the context determine, or put an adjective in front of it, like running shoes. But running is an adjective, in this case, an adjective to describe shoes, running shoes. She bought a new pair of sneakers at the gym. British English, trainers. Trainers. And a trainer is, in American English, a trainer is a person who helps you with physical therapy, for example, if you've been injured and you go to a physical therapy person, or at the gym, right? My personal trainer. The personal trainer is the person at the gym who you work with to help you exercise. He put on his trainers and headed to the football pitch. Now, so for it's football and there's those spiky things at the bottom, then Americans would use the word cleats. Cleats. So we like to kind of describe the specific shoes. Cleats, running shoes, basketball shoes, loafers, you know, specific words like that. She always wears her trainers when she goes out for a walk. So cleats would be for American-style football, soccer, for running on a track, I guess, for, what else, baseball. Yeah, you would wear cleats. Cleats. Does it mean something else in British besides shoes? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. All right, let's do one more food-related one. food-related one. There are so many of these. We're not doing all of them. Just a few. French fries, in American English, potato sticks, kind of. Fried, tasty, salty, but not too crunchy, kind of soft, right? Like kind of pinky shaped, but longer, like a straw. And in the UK, so he ordered a burger with a side of French fries. In the UK, it would be chips. Now, Americans use the word chips. So in British English, chips would be like fish and chips. You have fried fish and then some French fries on the side. So that's chips. But Americans, when they say chips, they mean potato chips. So it's still potatoes, but they're extremely crispy. A bag of Lay's or Ruffles or something like that. And when you bite it, it's a, very, very crunchy. That's what we mean when we say chips. So then the question is, well, then how do British people describe what Americans mean when they say chips? They would say crisps. So British English, crisps, what you buy in a bag, very crunchy, very salty, made of potatoes. Chips, longer pieces of potatoes, not so crunchy, still salty, softer, something you would get with fish, fried fish, or a burger. And then American English, French fries, or often not just French fries, just fries. Often we just say fries. Or, meaning the long thing, and chips, meaning the crunchy thing that you buy in a bag. Let's see if ChatGPT can do this as an image. Let's see. Make an image of British chips. And then make an image of American chips. How smart is ChatGPT here? We'll see if we can get both of these images. And then, friends, I think we're going to call it a day. We're going to call it a day. But we've been going for a good hour and a half, so I think that's good. That's the typical time. So make sure to come back for next week, next Friday. We'll have a rock-solid internet connection, very stable, very reliable. And if you haven't done so, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. Check out the checklist in the description, free course in the description. Listen to the audio, links in the description, any podcast platform that you like, or watch on YouTube and Facebook. Hey, where's my picture? Where's my picture? It's taking too long. Okay, do we have it? Seems like there was an issue generating the image. Okay, let's try the American chips. And then try this one again. British chips. Let's try the British chips one again as well. Let's see what we got. Ah, there we go. Okay, that looks like American chips. You buy that in a bag. You might have them in a bowl. I don't know that you would put ketchup beside that. You wouldn't use ketchup with those. Usually just eat them or dip them in. Sometimes people dip them in sour cream. Okay, and now we want to see if we can get British-style chips. American-style potato chips. Yeah, short for potato chips. I like the kettle ones. Kettle chips. They're called kettle chips. They're just different texture. Really good. There you go. And British style, which is what I would call fries. Softer, right? Captures the classic look and feel associated with this popular dish. ChatGPT is doing a really good job of knowing context-specific requests here with different styles of chips. So good job, ChatGPT. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching. I appreciate you all being here. It has been fantastic. I hope that you have learned something today. If I didn't answer a question, then make sure to join next Friday, every Friday, around 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Again, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend and rest of the week, and I will see you in the next one.